This week, the Disciple Ministry's Lenten theme is All These Words. And it encourages us to reflect on the impact the 10 words, which we know as the 10 Commandments, has on our journey along life's highway. It's a very appropriate topic for us to reflect on in the light of our recent lockdown and the resulting social media's frenzy pointing at the finger at people who crossed the boundary lines. We heard calls for the introduction of more draconian measures in policing those boundary lines. And question was raised about the naivety of the government in expecting people to automatically comply with the coronavirus guidelines. The placing of self-interest before community interest has become a hot topic of discussion. It's an issue that mankind has grappled with over the centuries of time. Scripture provides us with many examples of the battles that raged between self and community interests. The reading from Exodus that we heard this morning is part of an inspirational story that comes to its climax with God giving Moses a set of principles by which the Israelites were to lead their lives as they journeyed across the Promised Land. The Israelites found that when they left Egypt, they were no longer constrained by the laws of the Egyptians. But this new freedom that they experienced came with a price. Every time they hit a conflict, there was a desire to go back to the old ways again. They questioned the value of this newfound freedom. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." Quite graphic words, isn't it? Poor old Moses. Finger was pointed at him. You're the one that's caused all this. You brought us out of that place of Egypt where we had all this food and we had plenty of water to drink. You've taken us into the wilderness where it looks as if we're going to die. So much for freedom. I suppose it's part of human nature that when things go wrong, we have to find something or someone to blame by pointing the finger at people who possibly don't deserve the blame. The Israelites found that out when they blamed Moses. Even when God comes to their rescue and provides water and food, that covenant that God is seeking with the Israelites was still under tension. The Israelites needed guidance so that they could focus on the true set of values that God desired in their covenantal relationship. And to achieve this goal, God gave Moses a set of guidelines, boundary markers, known to us, as I said, by the 10 Commandments. You will recall that Jesus, when questioned by a Pharisee, emphasized the two most important of these commandments. He said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the laws of the prophets." God's covenant with humankind is not governed by a set of rules or laws, boundary lines that must not be crossed, but a loving relationship that seeks to help us share that same love with our neighbours and the whole of God's creation. The words of the commandments are not rulings we must follow out of fear. God doesn't say, "Jump through the hoops of the commandments and I will love you." Instead, God says, "My love for you will shape you into the kind of person who cares about building up people, not knocking them down." As we try to fully grasp this goal in the world around us, we might have to cross some of the boundary lines that have been historically drawn up by society. Boundary lines that create false divisions, encompassing race, ethnicity, and social status, that instills in us a fear of the other, of the unknown. Jesus reminds us that we are all neighbours, all part of the family of God. And we must treat all with the same love and respect. The pandemic has created for us an environment where the place of self-interest before community interest has become the hot topic of discussion. Can we move beyond an atmosphere that encourages us to compete against each other to an atmosphere where we strive to help each other? This time last year, June and I were in UK. It was just at the time of their first lockdown. And it became very clear to us and to them how people just a couple of weeks earlier were looked down upon. The immigrant workers of different ethnic backgrounds who worked in the health sector and other essential services. They stood out in the street in the evening, clapping these people. But will the clapping continue or stop after the virus has been relegated to history? Will we in New Zealand strive for a society that places greater value on its citizens and our surrounding natural world? Or will we fall back into a system that encourages more power to exploit the weaker? We've been very fortunate in New Zealand that we haven't experienced the full impact of the virus that other countries have felt. Even though we've gone through a massive learning curve and many mistakes have been made, we appear to have stayed united. A few times, fractures have appeared in that unity. But it still survives. And we, like the Israelites, need God's guidance as we move forward into the future. And the future starts here, right this moment. This is the beginning of the future. We come together to worship God, to give thanks to God for us being just here this morning, to be able to be together in praising God.